All right, ready to dive into something pretty interesting.
I'm all ears. What's on the agenda for today's deep dive?
Today, we're going to be exploring 15 everyday habits that can actually boost your brain power.
Brain power, huh? You had my attention. I'm always up for a good brain boost.
And the best part is, we're not talking about any fancy gadgets or expensive supplements. These are simple things you can start doing right now to sharpen your thinking, unlock creativity, and just basically level up your cognitive game.
Okay, I like where this is going. So no need to break the bank or wait for some futuristic technology. What kind of simple habits are we talking about?
Well, I was looking through this list, and I gotta say, some of them are so simple, it's almost mind-blowing. Like, did you know that just the act of writing down your thoughts, even if they're totally random, can actually help organize your brain and spark creativity?
You know, it's funny you should mention that. I was actually reading about a study recently that showed how journaling can improve memory recall and problem-solving skills. It's like taking a mental snapshot and clearing space for new ideas to emerge.
Exactly. It's like decluttering your mind to make room for fresh insights. And that's just one example. We'll be exploring 14 more habits, each with its unique way of boosting your cognitive abilities.
14 more. All right, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. Let's dive in. Where do we start?
Well, let's kick things off with something we all know is good for us. Reading.
Reading, the classic brain booster. But I bet there's more to it than just picking up any random book, right?
Got it. It's not just about passively flipping through pages. What's really interesting is how diversifying your reading material can actually change the way you think. Think expanding your horizons, challenging your brain with different genres and perspectives.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example. How does diversifying my reading actually change the way I think?
Well, for instance, research shows that reading fiction can actually improve your empathy.
Really? How so?
By activating similar brain regions as real-life social interactions, you're essentially getting a workout in understanding and relating to others.
That's fascinating. So cracking open a good novel isn't just entertaining, it's like a workout for your emotional intelligence.
Precisely. And when it comes to nonfiction, especially in areas like science or history, it strengthens analytical thinking and information processing.
So it's like building a mental framework for understanding complex concepts and connecting the dots between different pieces of information.
Exactly. Diversifying what we read is like cross-training for our brains. And speaking of flexing those mental muscles, habit number 2 is all about writing.
Writing, you say. So are we talking about becoming novelists here? Penning the next great American novel?
Not necessarily. This is more about capturing those fleeting thoughts and ideas that swirl around in our heads. Journaling, free writing, just getting those thoughts out of your head and onto paper.
I see. So it's not about the quality of the writing, but more about the process of externalizing those thoughts.
You got it. Journaling, even just for a few minutes each day, can have a huge impact on your cognitive processes. It helps clarify your thinking, process emotions, even boost memory recall. It's like having a conversation with yourself on paper, but without the pressure of making it sound perfect.
Okay, I can get behind that. No pressure, just letting those thoughts flow.
Yeah.
I like it. What's next on our list of brain-boosting habits?
Up next, we've got a skill that I think might be one of the most overlooked in our hyper-distracted world.
Oh, and what skill would that be?
Active listening.
Active listening. Now, that's a good one. We all think we're good listeners, but are we really? What does active listening entail?
Well, true active listening goes beyond just hearing words, right? It's about being fully present, engaged with the speaker, asking clarifying questions, really absorbing information on a deeper level.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts or distractions, especially with our phones constantly buzzing.
Exactly. But when we really focus on what the other person is saying, not only does it strengthen relationships, it expands our understanding of the world too. It forces you to step outside your own perspective and consider different viewpoints, which are key elements of critical thinking and intellectual growth.
I'm seeing a theme here. Reading diversely, writing to process thoughts, actively listening to others. It's all about expanding our horizons and stepping outside our comfort zones.
And speaking of stepping outside our comfort zones, habit number 4 challenges us to do something that can be, well, a little uncomfortable.
Oh, you lay on me. What's this potentially uncomfortable habit that's going to boost my brain power?
It's all about challenging our own opinions.
Challenging our own opinions. That can definitely be a tough one. It's so easy to surround ourselves with people who agree with us, just stay in our comfortable echo chambers.
It's natural to want to hear information that confirms what we already believe. But true intellectual growth comes from venturing outside those familiar boundaries.
Okay, I'm listening. How do we actually do that? It's easy to say challenge your opinions, but how do you actually put that into practice?
Start by seeking out diverse sources of information. Read articles or books that present viewpoints different from your own. Engage in conversations with people who hold opposing views.
So it's about actively seeking out those alternative perspectives instead of just staying in our comfortable bubbles.
Exactly. And it's not about changing your mind to fix someone else's view either. It's about understanding the nuances of different arguments, strengthening your critical thinking skills, and developing a more well-rounded perspective on complex issues.
It's like exposing yourself to a wider range of colors so you can paint a more vibrant and nuanced picture of the world.
Exactly. It's about seeing the full spectrum of ideas, not just the ones that already resonate with you. All right, let's move on to habit number 5. This one's all about learning new skills.
Learning new skills, huh? I can definitely get behind that. Always up for a challenge.
I completely agree. And I've noticed it doesn't even have to be something super complex. Even picking up a new hobby or learning the basics of a new language. It keeps your brain engaged and adaptable.
So it's not just about the skill itself, but the process of learning itself that benefits our brains.
That's right. And this is where the idea of neuroplasticity comes in. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences, the challenges you expose it to. The more you learn, the more adaptable and resilient your brain becomes.
It's like a positive feedback loop of brain-boosting benefits.
I like that, a positive feedback loop. And speaking of learning, there's a fascinating twist that takes it to the next level.
Oh, what's that?
Well, one of the best ways to solidify your learning and truly understand a new concept. Teach it to someone else.
The classic, the best way to learn is to teach principle.
Yeah.
Why is that so effective?
Because when you have to explain something to another person, you're forced to organize your thoughts, identify those key points. You have to articulate that information clearly and concisely.
It's like the act of teaching compels you to think about the material from a fresh perspective and solidify your understanding.
That's right. So next time you learn something new, why not challenge yourself to teach it to a friend, family member, or even your pet?
I love that challenge. All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the connection between our brains and our bodies. We often think of intelligence as this purely mental thing, but in reality, a healthy body is crucial for optimal brain function.
That's right. Habit number 7 focuses on taking care of your physical well-being. Regular exercise, balanced diet, staying hydrated, and of course, getting enough sleep.
It's like providing your brain with the premium fuel it needs to perform at its best.
Exactly. When you nourish your body with healthy foods, get that heart pumping with exercise, and give your brain the rest it needs, you're setting yourself up for cognitive success.
So true. Speaking of rest, let's talk about meditation. I have to admit, I used to be a bit skeptical about meditation myself.
You and me both. It seemed a little too, out there for me. But the more I learn about the science behind it, the more fascinated I become.
I hear you. And the research on meditation is pretty remarkable. Studies have shown that regular meditation can actually increase gray matter in the brain.
Wait, really? It actually changes the physical structure of our brains?
It does, especially in areas associated with memory, decision-making, emotional regulation.
So it's not just about feeling calm and relaxed. Meditation's actually physically changing the structure of our brains for the better.
Precisely. It's like a workout for your mind, helping to strengthen and enhance those key cognitive functions.
And just like with physical exercise, you don't need to spend hours meditating to reap the benefits.
Right. Even a few minutes each day can make a noticeable difference.
That's good to know. I'm definitely more motivated to give it a try now. All right, we've covered reading, writing, active listening, challenging our opinions, learning new skills, teaching those skills, taking care of our bodies, and even dipping our toes into meditation. What's next on our brain-boosting agenda?
Well, one of the most powerful drivers of learning and growth is something we all have within us: curiosity.
Ah, yes, habit number 9, staying curious. I love this one. It's all about asking those why and how questions, approaching the world with a sense of wonder and exploration.
Curiosity keeps our brains engaged and active. It's the fuel for innovation, discovery, and problem solving. When we're curious, we're more likely to seek out new information, make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas, and find creative solutions to challenges.
That's what makes learning so much fun. When you're driven by genuine curiosity, it doesn't feel like work, does it? It's more like an adventure.
Exactly. And doesn't have to be about these complex scientific theories or philosophical debates. Curiosity can be sparked by anything that piques your interest. a new type of cuisine, a different culture, or even a peculiar insect you've never seen before.
You know what, that reminds me of a time when I was completely absorbed in researching.
That sounds like a great example of how a simple question can send you down a rabbit hole of fascinating discoveries.
It really is amazing. But sometimes we need to pull ourselves out of those rabbit holes and be a little more mindful of how we're spending our time.
Which brings us to habit number 10, limiting mindless entertainment.
Ah, yes. The battle against the endless scroll. But this isn't about becoming anti-technology or giving up all forms of entertainment, right?
Right. It's more about being aware of how passive consumption can zap our mental energy.
I think we've all been there. Spending hours scrolling through social media or binge watching a show and feeling that brain drain afterward, like our minds have been on autopilot.
Exactly. And while some downtime is important for relaxation and stress reduction, too much passive entertainment can make it harder to focus.
It can even affect our overall cognitive function. So finding a balance is key.
Not eliminating entertainment altogether, but being more intentional with our choices.
Instead of automatically reaching for your phone or the remote, maybe pick up a book, solve a puzzle, or engage in a conversation that actually stimulates your mind.
Or listen to a thought-provoking podcast. Of course, anything that nourishes your mind and makes you feel more energized.
Which brings us to habit number 11, surrounding yourself with smart people. It's incredible how much the company we keep can influence us.
Absolutely. As social creatures, we're constantly absorbing the habits and mindsets of those around us.
You know, I've definitely noticed that if I spend too much time with people who are negative or constantly complaining, it starts to bring me down. But when I'm around people who are curious, optimistic, and engaged with the world, my own energy and inspiration go way up.
It's like we're naturally wired to mirror the behaviors of those around us.
So this isn't about only befriending geniuses or intellectuals, right? It's about being more intentional about who we spend our time with.
Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow, learn, and see the world from different angles.
People who inspire you and push you to be your best self. Okay, ready for habit number 12?
Bring it on.
This one might seem a bit counterintuitive, embracing failure.
Yes, the dreaded F word. But why embrace it?
Because we often view failure as something to be avoided at all costs. But it's actually an essential part of growth.
I think a lot of us have been conditioned to fear failure.
Absolutely. And that fear can hold us back from taking risks and trying new things, but I've realized that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the journey.
What matters most is how we respond to those setbacks. Do we let them define us, or do we learn from them?
Exactly. We need to shift our perspective from seeing failure as a personal defeat to viewing it as valuable feedback.
What can we learn from our mistakes? What can we do differently next time? That's the real growth.
Turning those setbacks into stepping stones for future success. Which leads us perfectly into habit number 13, setting goals and reflecting on our progress.
Goals give us direction, a target to aim for.
And reflecting on our progress allows us to adjust our course along the way.
It's like having a roadmap and a compass for personal growth.
And if we're not setting goals and reflecting, how do we even know what we're working towards?
Exactly. It helps us identify our strengths, our weaknesses, and areas where we can improve.
Okay, let's move on to something that's essential for both our physical and mental well-being.
You mean habits 14 and 15? Taking breaks and getting enough sleep?
You read my mind. I'll admit, I'm guilty of trying to power through exhaustion sometimes, thinking I can just push through.
I think a lot of us fall into that trap, especially in today's fast-paced world.
But I'm starting to realize that it's a recipe for burnout.
Our brains and bodies need downtime to function properly.
It's like any other muscle. If you overuse it without rest, it'll eventually break down.
Taking breaks throughout the day, even if they're short, gives your brain a chance to recharge and process information more effectively.
And sleep is crucial for consolidating memories and preparing your brain for the day ahead.
Skimping on sleep might feel productive in the short term, but it'll catch up to you eventually.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on the common thread that ties all these habits together.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is this. Intelligence isn't something we're born with. It's something we can cultivate and grow through conscious effort and the right habits.
That's empowering, isn't it? It means we have more control over our cognitive abilities than we might think.
And while we've explored 15 specific habits today, there are endless ways to enhance our brain power.
The key is to stay curious, embrace challenges, and keep seeking out new experiences that stretch and expand our minds.
Absolutely. And remember to approach this journey with a sense of playfulness and curiosity. Learning should be enjoyable, not a chore.
I love that. It's about rediscovering the joy of learning and embracing the amazing potential that exists within each of us.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those brains sharp.
That's a wrap on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these 15 habits for a sharper you. Remember, intelligence isn't fixed. It's a muscle you can strengthen with the right approach. So go out there and make those brains shine.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into 15 habits for a sharper you. We've covered a lot of ground so far, from the power of curiosity to embracing those inevitable failures. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure our listeners walk away with some practical takeaways, some actionable advice.
Absolutely. It's one thing to understand the why behind these habits, but let's go to the how. How can our listeners actually incorporate these ideas into their everyday lives?
It's easy to get excited about all these amazing benefits, but then you look at the list and it's like, whoa, where do I even begin?
Exactly. It can feel a little overwhelming trying to implement all 15 habits at once. So don't worry, you don't have to do a complete life overhaul overnight.
That's a relief.
Instead, just start small. Pick 1 or 2 habits that really resonate with you, that you feel you can realistically fit into your routine, and build from there. Okay, so let's say someone's really intrigued by the idea of cultivating curiosity, but they just aren't sure where to start. What would you suggest? How do you actually become more curious?
I'd say try setting aside a specific time each day, even if it's just for 15 minutes, to explore something new. It could be anything. Reading an article on a topic you've always wondered about, watching a documentary, or even just striking up a conversation with someone who has different experiences than you.
It's like scheduling a daily dose of wonder.
Exactly. And the more you practice this habit of seeking out new information and experiences, the more natural it will become. You'll start noticing things you might have overlooked before.
That reminds me of something we talked about earlier about how all these habits are kind of interconnected. Once you start practicing one, it can have a ripple effect and make it easier to adopt others.
That's the beauty of it. For example, if you start cultivating curiosity, you might find yourself naturally wanting to read more, seek out new learning opportunities, even challenge your own opinions more frequently.
It's like a chain reaction of positive growth and self-improvement. So for those of you listening who are ready to take action, we encourage you to pick 1 or 2 habits from our list and commit to incorporating them into your daily routine.
And remember, consistency is key. It takes time and effort to form new habits. Don't get discouraged if you slip up or miss a day. Just get back on track and keep practicing. You'll get there.
It's like learning any new skill. It takes practice and patience, but those rewards, totally worth it.
And here's a final thought as you embark on this journey of cognitive enhancement. Remember to approach it with a sense of playfulness and curiosity. Learning shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be enjoyable.
That's such an important reminder. It's about embracing that joy of discovery and those endless possibilities for growth and transformation that we all have within us.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those brains firing on all cylinders.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you enjoyed exploring these 15 habits for a sharper you. Remember, intelligence is not fixed. It's a muscle that can be strengthened and developed with effort and the right approach. So go out there and make those brains shine.